The delivery room door swung open violently, and her mother-in-law, Jean, stormed in. Sarah was still so racked with the lingering pains of childbirth that she could barely lift a finger. But upon seeing her mother-in-law, she struggled to sit up. "Jean, you're here? I'm not feeling well enough to get up," Sarah managed to say, her voice hoarse. But Jean's reaction was colder than ice. Ignoring her daughter-in-law's exhausted state, Jean tossed her handbag onto the sofa and spoke with a strange expression. "Well, I hear girls are fine these days." It was neither a congratulations nor a comfort. For a first remark to a daughter-in-law who had just given birth, it was a brutally cruel assessment. For a moment, Sarah couldn't believe her ears, staring blankly at her mother-in-law's face. Jean, oblivious to the hurt in Sarah's eyes, continued her monologue. "In the old days, this would have been a disaster, the end of the family line. But times have changed, I suppose. It's not like we can look down on you for having a girl, right?" Sarah felt something snap inside her. After a 1-2 hour ordeal, the first words she heard were a backhanded compliment about being lucky it was just a girl. Her husband, Mark, quickly intervened, trying to change the subject. He pointed to the baby in the bassinet, forcing a bright smile. "Mom, look at Chloe. Isn't she beautiful? She has my nose and Sarah's eyes. Come on, hold your granddaughter," he urged. But Jean didn't even glance towards the newborn. Waving a dismissive hand, she pulled out her phone. "I can see her later. I have things to do, and it's not like the baby is going anywhere. Why the rush? Besides, that newborn smell gives me a headache. I'll take a look when she's a bit older." Sarah's heart sank. She was speechless at the sight of her mother-in-law ignoring her own granddaughter, making excuses about being busy. Just then, a nurse came in to check on the baby. Little Chloe, wearing a tiny pink hat, was sleeping soundly, the very picture of an angel. The nurse smiled and offered, "Grandma, the little princess is so lovely. Like a little doll, isn't she? Would you like to hold her?" Without looking up from her phone, Jean replied stiffly, "No, that's all right. My hands are a bit rough. I'd be afraid of hurting her. Just leave her be." The mother-in-law didn't even look at the baby. The nurse, sensing the awkward tension, gave Sarah a quick, sympathetic glance and hurried out of the room. A cold silence filled the space. Sarah held her baby tighter, her hands trembling. Jean's behavior cut her to the core, but Jean remained as indifferent as a stranger visiting an open house. After staring at her phone for a long while, Jean suddenly asked, as if just remembering, "What was her birth weight? She looks so small. Was it because you weren't eating right?" Sarah bit her lip, stung by her mother-in-law's focus on a number instead of the baby's name or her own well-being. "She was 7 pounds, Sarah replied. "The doctor said she's perfectly healthy." "Well, that's good then. Decent enough. Like I said, girls are fine these days. A boy would have been better. But what can you do in this day and age? It's just her lot in life, I guess." The blatant disappointment hidden behind the word fine made Sarah clench her fists. Mark tried to lighten the mood, saying how daughters are more devoted. But Jean just muttered a, "Yeah, whatever," and stood up. She announced she was going to the restroom and walked out into the hallway. A moment later, Sarah could hear her voice drifting from down the hall, talking to another family. "Oh, you're here to see your new grandchild? How wonderful. Congratulations." To the person's kind words, Jean replied with an air of annoyance. "Congratulations for what? My daughter-in-law had a girl. I can't exactly give her a hard time about it in this day and age, so I'm just trying to live with it. Kids these days are so dramatic. You really need a son to have some security, but I guess she just wasn't lucky." Sarah heard every single word. Her eyes welled with tears at her mother-in-law's audacity, bad-mouthing her and her granddaughter loud enough for the entire floor to hear. The fact that her newborn, Chloe, was so unwelcome made her heart break. When Jean returned, she didn't even glance at Sarah's pale face. Instead, she plopped down in a chair and let out a heavy sigh, muttering just loud enough for Sarah to hear, "Ugh, now we have to go through all this again until we get a boy. Sarah, you better recover quickly and get ready for the next one. We need at least one boy in this family, don't we?" Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. Seeing her mother-in-law already talking about the next baby, a boy, to a woman who had just given birth, Sarah foresaw the difficult life that lay ahead. Jean, taking her silence as agreement, continued shamelessly, "Mark, you better get your act together too. You need to make a lot of money. One daughter isn't enough. You know what I mean, right?" Mark just laughed nervously, failing to stand up for his wounded wife. Sarah pulled her baby closer and made a vow. In the midst of these people, I will protect you, Chloe. Her mother-in-law's cold gaze and rude words left an indelible scar on Sarah's heart, a scar that soon hardened into a firm resolve for revenge. After tormenting Sarah with her words for a while longer, Jean grabbed her bag as if her business was done. I'm leaving. Mark, make sure you eat well. And you, daughter-in-law, don't just lie around. Move a little. It'll help you recover faster. Even after Jean left, her cold presence seemed to linger in the room. Sarah stared at the ceiling, not bothering to wipe away the tears that streamed down her face. Her eyes were no longer those of the obedient daughter-in-law she once was. She had learned a painful lesson. It was a mother's sole duty to protect a life that was not welcomed. It was the morning of her discharge. The hospital lobby was bustling with families celebrating new life. Other new mothers were surrounded by huge bouquets and balloons brought by their in-laws, their faces beaming with joy. But besides Sarah, there was only her husband, Mark. Sarah clutched the baby's blanket, worried she might get cold, and scanned the crowd. But her mother-in-law, Jean, was nowhere to be seen. Swallowing her bitter disappointment, Sarah asked cautiously, Honey, isn't your mom coming? I thought we told her I was being discharged today. Mark avoided her gaze, fiddling with his phone. Then he said casually, She has something to do. Something came up with her friends last minute. She said she's busy, so we should just go by ourselves. Besides, you're going straight to your parents' house, so there's no real need for her to come. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. His mother's lunch with friends was more important than her daughter-in-law's discharge from the hospital. She was at a loss for words. A nurse pushing a wheelchair asked, Ma'am, is all your family here? You have a lot of bags. Do you need help? Embarrassed, Sarah lowered her head. Yes, it's just my husband and me, she replied. The nurse's pitying gaze met hers, but Sarah forced a smile. The car ride to her parents' house was filled with a heavy silence. Mark turned on the radio to break the tension, but the cheerful music only made Sarah feel more miserable. When they arrived, her parents, Bill and Mary, were waiting for them at the front door. Mary's eyes welled up as she saw her daughter holding her new granddaughter. Oh, my sweet girl, you're here. You've been through so much, Sarah. But, didn't your mother-in-law come with you? Mark scratched his head and laughed awkwardly. She had an urgent matter come up. I'm sorry, Mary. I'll tell her to give you a call later. Her father, Bill, opened the back door to get her luggage, but all he found was Sarah's small bag. He looked puzzled. Is this all? I thought you'd have a lot of baby supplies and your things. Oh, I'll bring the rest later when I have time. I have to get back to the office right away. Well, Bill, Mary, I'll be going now. Mark jumped back in the car, as if he were being chased, and sped off. Watching her husband's car disappear, Sarah muttered to herself. So, I'm on my own. No, it's just Chloe and me. Later, after finally getting the baby to sleep and lying down, her phone buzzed. It was a text from her mother-in-law. Sarah's eyes trembled as she read it. Sarah, as you know, our finances are tight right now. For the time being, let's agree that you'll cover your own living expenses and the baby's costs. I'm sure your parents will understand, since they're helping you with postpartum recovery. Don't even think about asking us for money. Sarah read the message over and over. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a declaration. As if she'd been waiting for the chance, her mother-in-law had cut her and her granddaughter off, both financially and emotionally. With a trembling hand, Sarah took a screenshot. Tears welled up, but she bit her lip and held them back. The next morning, she received a call from Mark that felt like a final nail in the coffin. Hey, Sarah. I talked to Mom. It looks like you'll have to buy the formula and diapers for now. My salary is barely enough to cover the mortgage. You know that disability pay you're getting from your leave? Use that to cover things for now. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. What are you talking about? My disability pay is next to nothing. You're telling me I have to cover all the baby's expenses by myself? Your family isn't going to help at all? Mom said their finances are tight right now. She said they'll help later when things get better. Don't be so sensitive. You're staying at your parents' house. You're not even paying for food. What's the problem? And with that, Mark said he was busy and hung up. Sarah put down her phone and stared blankly at the ceiling. It was clear now. To her in-laws, she was no longer family, but an object to be set aside to lighten their load. Around lunchtime, Mary knocked on her door. Sarah, your soup is ready. Eat it while it's warm. Did Mark call? Did his parents say anything? Sarah, her eyes red and swollen, forced a smile as she came out. Yes, Mom. His mom calls often to say how pretty Chloe is. Mark said he'll definitely visit this weekend. It was a lie to keep her parents from worrying, but the food felt like sand in her mouth. Mary caught a glimpse of Jean's text on Sarah's phone screen, but said nothing, simply placing a piece of fish on her daughter's plate. It seemed her parents already knew everything. Sarah's heart ached even more. That night, Sarah stumbled upon her in-laws' family group chat. Maybe Mark had sent her a link by mistake, or it was an old group she had been invited to. But the group's name was Our Family, and the members were only Jean, Mark, and his sister. Sarah was nowhere in it. As if possessed, Sarah searched for Jean's social media profile. A post had been made just a few hours earlier. Under a photo of her laughing with friends at a fancy cafe was the caption, "It's so peaceful now that the obstacle in my life is gone. It's so convenient that my daughter-in-law went to her parents' house on her own. People really need to know how to take a hint." In the comments, friends wrote things like, "I heard you have a granddaughter now. Congratulations." But Jean's reply was cold. "Don't even mention it. I'm not that attached to her since she's a girl. I guess my daughter-in-law will raise her well at her parents' house. I'm just going to enjoy my own life." Sarah read every word and saved screenshots of it all. Looking at the feed, which was filled not with a single photo of her own granddaughter, but with pictures of another daughter-in-law's son, Sarah realized the truth. She hadn't been kicked out. She had never been on their family roster to begin with. Sarah pulled a notebook from the back of a drawer. She picked up a pen and began to write, pressing down hard. Evidence item has shown. In-laws' complete absence and neglect on hospital discharge day. Evidence item #2. Text message, shifting all financial responsibility for living and childcare expenses. Evidence item #3. Intentional exclusion and insults via family group chat and social media. Sarah's eyes were no longer filled with sadness. They shone, cold and hard as ice. She was preparing to show those who tried to erase her existence just how heavy a price they would pay. The scratch of the pen on paper broke the silence of the night as Sarah made a silent vow. "Jean, and you, Mark, for every tear I've shed while being treated like I don't exist, I will make you cry tears of blood. Just you wait." A chilling smile spread across Sarah's lips. The prelude to her revenge had begun. Quietly, but surely. A month had passed. In all that time, there hadn't been a single call from her in-laws. Every morning, Sarah checked her phone with a glimmer of hope, but there were no messages from Jean. Her husband, Mark, would occasionally send a half-hearted "How are you?" text. When Sarah replied with things like "Chloe didn't sleep well last night," or "We're out of formula," all she got back was the cold, silent red receipt. On the day Chloe turned 2 months old, it was time for her vaccinations. Sarah, dragging her heavy body, went to the pediatrician's office with her mother, Mary. The crowded waiting room was filled with moms and dads comforting their children together. Watching them, Mary asked cautiously, her expression pained, "Sarah, have you really not heard from them at all? Mark knows Chloe has her shots today, doesn't he?" Sarah, pretending to be unfazed, adjusted Chloe's blanket and shook her head. "They must be busy. Mark said he has a lot on his plate at work these days." Mary sighed deeply. "Busy? No matter how busy you are, how can you not even make a single phone call on the day your own child is getting vaccinated? His parents are too much. It's like they're not even curious about their granddaughter." Mary's words stung, but Sarah said nothing. Inside the examination room, as Chloe burst into tears, Sarah held her tight and snapped a photo. She sent it to Mark with a message. "Chloe did great with her shots. She was so brave and didn't even cry much." But an hour passed, then 2, and still no reply came. With a bitter heart, Sarah shoved her phone deep into her pocket. The real crisis hit that night. Likely due to the vaccination, Chloe suddenly developed a high fever. The thermometer quickly shot past 102 degrees, and her tiny body felt like it was on fire. Panicked, Sarah's hands trembled as she called Mark. "Honey, something's wrong. Chloe's fever is really high. It's 102. We need to go to the hospital. Can you come now?" Loud music and people's laughter could be heard in the background. Mark answered, his voice laced with irritation. "Did you give her Tylenol? Babies run fevers all the time. It's how they grow. I'm at a work dinner right now. I can't leave. We're celebrating the end of a big project with the team. You'll have to take her to the ER yourself." "A work dinner? Your daughter is burning up, struggling to breathe, and you think a work dinner is more important? Get here now." You're impossible." I said I was sorry. I can't get away right now. You're at your parents' house, aren't you? Ask your mom for help. I'll call you later. And with that, Mark hung up. Sarah stared at the dead phone, the dial tone buzzing in her ear, and sank to the floor. Just then, Mary opened the door. Sarah, I'll go. Get Chloe's bag ready. It's late, but I can drive. We'll get there quickly. Mom, I'm so sorry. At this hour. Sorry for what? You shouldn't go alone when you're feeling sick yourself. Let's hurry. They rushed to the university hospital's emergency room. Chloe lay limp in Sarah's arms, her breathing shallow and labored. After the examination, the doctor looked around and asked in a serious tone, "Is the baby's father not here?" Sarah lowered her head and mumbled, her voice barely a whisper. "He had to work." The doctor just nodded silently, but his eyes were filled with sympathy. The next afternoon, after Chloe's fever had subsided a little, Sarah went to a large supermarket near her in-laws' house to buy more formula. As she stood in the checkout line, she heard a sickeningly familiar voice behind her. It was her mother-in-law, Jean. Jean was approaching with a group of lavishly dressed friends, chatting loudly. "You won't believe it. My daughter-in-law is so cunning. She's using any excuse to stick to her parents' house like glue, with no intention of coming back. I never told her not to come, but she's made herself right at home there." Jean's voice echoed through the store. Sarah froze, feeling like she'd turned to stone. One of Jean's friends chimed in. "Oh, really? How long is she planning on staying there? Her parents must be getting tired of it." "Who knows? She says it's comfortable, so she's just staying." That's how all the young daughters-in-law are these days. They don't want to lift a finger at their in-laws' house and just want to leech off their own parents. That's why I kept saying you need to have a son, but she had a girl, and now look at her. Just unlucky, I guess. The friends cackled, and Jean joined in, looking pleased. With trembling hands, Sarah finished paying and slowly turned around. Her eyes met Jean's. Jean's eyes widened like a rabbit's, and she feigned surprise. "Oh, Sarah, what are you doing here? I thought you were at your parents' house." Sarah managed a cold, faint smile. "Hello, Jean. You were speaking so loudly I could hear you from here. I'm surprised you didn't see me." "Well, did I say anything that wasn't true? It's a fact that you haven't come home and are staying with your parents. Anyway, where's Chloe? Did you leave her alone to come here? I guess she's growing up healthy." Jean stared at Sarah's face, but didn't even ask about Chloe's well-being, clearly unaware that the baby had been in the ER the night before. She was only concerned with why her daughter-in-law hadn't returned. Sarah added coldly, "I came to buy formula for Chloe. Since you said we should handle our own finances, I'm buying it with my own money, which is a bit tight. I'll be on my way now." Sarah pushed her cart and walked out of the store without a proper goodbye. She could hear them muttering, "Look at her nerve behind her." But she didn't care. Back in her car in the parking lot, Sarah gripped the steering wheel, her body shaking with rage. "I didn't abandon you. You abandoned me. Now I'll show you." When she got home, her father, Bill, was sitting in the living room with a solemn expression. He had her sit down and spoke in a low but firm voice. "Sarah, I think it's time to settle this. You remember that condo I bought in your name when you got married? The tenants are moving out. You should move in there." Sarah looked at her father in surprise. "Dad, why all of a sudden? We were saving that for a rainy day, if we ever fell on hard times. How long are you going to hide here, holding your breath? It's clear your husband has no intention of coming to get you, and his family is treating you like you don't exist. Your mother, and I have seen it all. It's time for you to move into your own home, proudly. That property is in your name. You are the owner. You don't have to feel like you're walking on eggshells for anyone." Sarah looked directly into her father's determined eyes. Bill continued, "The fact that they haven't contacted you doesn't mean they've given up on you. They're waiting to see how long you'll last, when you'll give up and come crawling back. They're just observing. So, you need to make your own calculations. Play the cards you're holding, and play them with confidence." A cold glint appeared in Sarah's eyes. If her in-laws were waiting to wear her down, she now realized it was her turn to wear them down. "I understand, Dad. I won't run away anymore." That night, Sarah opened her notebook and recorded the new developments. Evidence item #4. Chloe's high fever and ER visit. Husband's neglect due to work dinner. Evidence item #5. Mother-in-law's public defamation and insults at the supermarket. Evidence item #6. In-laws' complete indifference to granddaughter's deteriorating health. Closing the notebook, a cold smile touched Sarah's lips. There was no sadness or frustration left. If observing is your hobby, then watch closely. I'm about to show you how I shatter all your expectations. Sarah held Chloe's tiny hand and made a promise. The war was just beginning. A week later, on a quiet afternoon, Sarah's father, Bill, placed a thick manila envelope on the living room table. His expression grave. Sarah looked at him, puzzled. "Dad, what's this? Why so many documents?" Bill looked at Sarah with a kind yet resolute gaze. "Sarah, open it. It's a gift from your mother and me. For you and our Chloe." Sarah carefully opened the envelope. Inside was the sales agreement for a brand new apartment. On the buyer's line, her name, Sarah, was clearly written. It was in her name alone, no one else's. Sarah was so stunned she couldn't speak. "Dad, is this real? An agreement in my name? This is a new construction in downtown Manhattan." Her mother, Mary, who was standing nearby, took Sarah's hand warmly. "Yes, Sarah. Your father and I saved our entire lives for this. Pinching every penny. We want you to live with your head held high with Chloe, without having to worry about your in-laws. $1.5 million is not a small amount, but if it can wipe away our daughter's tears, it's worth every cent. We've made a clean legal break from your husband and his family, so don't worry. This is your house, your fortress. No one will ever mistreat you here again." Sarah's hands trembled at her father's words. More than the fact that she now owned a home worth a staggering $1.5 million, she was overwhelmed by the love of her parents, who had given everything to protect her. She bowed her head, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, Dad. Mom, thank you so much. What have I done to deserve this?" Mary patted her back soothingly. "You're our daughter. Of course you deserve it. Now, chin up and live proudly. That's the best way you can repay us. All right?" 2 days later, all the paperwork was finalized, and Sarah held the key card to her new apartment. Standing on the marble floor of the empty living room, looking out the window, she felt like she had the world at her feet, yet her heart ached. She kissed Chloe's forehead and whispered, "Chloe, this is our home now. No one will ever look down on you again. Mommy is going to raise you in this house to be the most precious child in the world. Just watch." That afternoon, Sarah finally called her husband, Mark. It was the first time she had called him in over a month, and her voice was as cold as ice. "Honey, I've moved out of my parents' house. I'm moving into my new apartment. I'm all done with the preparations." Mark was silent for a moment, as if he couldn't believe his ears. Then he asked, flustered, "What? An apartment all of a sudden? What are you talking about? Did your parents get you a place?" "Yes. My parents bought a home for me and Chloe to live in. It's in my name only." A short silence followed. After a long pause, Mark's cautious but greedy voice revealed his true colors. "How much is it worth? And where is it?" $1.5 million. It's a new construction in the heart of Manhattan." "What? $1.5 million? And you're telling me it's only in your name? Sarah, are you out of your mind?" Sarah scoffed at Mark's suddenly raised voice. "Why? What's the problem with it being in my name? Not a single penny from you or your family went into it. It's my home, but we're married. Why isn't my name on it? Are we strangers? It should be in both our names, obviously. Your parents are being ridiculous. Don't I count as a son-in-law?" Mark started arguing with absurd logic. Sarah cut him off coldly. "You have some nerve asking for your name to be on the deed after not even bothering to call for over a month and a half and going to a work dinner while your daughter was in the ER. What have you ever done for us?" "That was because I was busy. Don't you know I'm working hard to support our family?" "I'm really disappointed in you, Sarah. Being busy is just an excuse. The truth is, you never cared about us. Let's be honest. I'm starting to move in next week. Come if you want, don't if you don't. I have no intention of holding on to you." Sarah hung up, leaving Mark in his cowardly silence. That night, a call came from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was her mother-in-law, Jean's, and it was just as grating as ever. "Sarah, it's me. I heard you bought a house. And a $1.5 million apartment in your name only? What kind of nonsense is that?" There was no greeting, no asking how her granddaughter was. Only obsession over the price and the title. Sarah replied calmly, "Yes, Jean. I bought it in my name. My parents bought it for me. Are you kidding me right now? How can you leave your husband's name off the deed when you're married? If you're a part of our family, it's your duty to uphold your husband's honor. Put Mark's name on it right now. Change it to a joint title. Jean's voice grew into a sharp scream. Sarah responded coolly, Jean, for the past month and a half, you never once said you were curious to see your granddaughter's face. When Chloe had her shots, when she was in the ER with a high fever, all you did was badmouth your daughter-in-law. But the moment you hear about the house, you call right away. It's fascinating. Jean was momentarily flustered, but then she shamelessly yelled, Are you talking back to me? When did I ever say I wasn't curious about my granddaughter? Kids these days are so paranoid. Just cut the crap and change the title. If you don't, you'll regret it. What's the problem? Why should I give your son the title to my house? Because we're married? Can you tell me one thing your son has done as a proper husband for the past month and a half? Sarah laughed coldly and ended the call. You must be busy, Jean, so don't waste your energy on pointless things. I'm hanging up now. Goodbye. Sarah hung up on Jean's furious screams. Putting down the phone, a cold smile spread across her face. She took out her notebook and meticulously recorded the new events. Evidence item #7. Mother-in-law's first contact after hearing news of $1.5M apartment purchase, with threats and demands for property. Evidence item #height. In-laws' unethical obsession with son's name on the title and property value over granddaughter's well-being. Sarah stared out at the darkness and made a vow. The $1.5 million apartment wasn't just a home. It was bait to draw out the ugly true nature of her in-laws. And they had taken the bait beautifully. This is where it really begins, Jean. You love money and status so much. Now watch closely as I tear it all to shreds. Sarah's gaze was harder and sharper than ever before. The next morning, at the ungodly hour of 6 a.m., Sarah's phone rang incessantly. The caller was her mother-in-law, Jean. Sarah sighed and answered, Hello? Jean, what's wrong? It's so early. Before she could finish, Jean's sharp voice pierced her ear. Her first words were not an apology or a greeting, but an aggressive command. Sarah, you pack your bags and come back home right now. You've been at your parents' long enough. How long are you planning on staying there? Sarah let out a humorless laugh. This was the same woman who, just a few days ago, had told her not to come back and cut off all financial support. What? What are you talking about all of a sudden? Why should I go back to your house? What do you mean, why? You bought a house, didn't you? Now that you have a house, the proper thing to do is to greet the elders and move back in together. A family should live together. Is it normal for a daughter-in-law to be wandering around outside? Jean's voice held no trace of remorse, only a sense of entitlement. Sarah replied coldly, Jean, for the past month and a half, you never once said you wanted to see your granddaughter. When I tried to contact you, you said you were busy and hung up. Jean shamelessly changed her tune. I was very busy then. I have my own life, you know? How can I answer your calls every time? But I've had a change of heart. I want to see her. What's the problem with that? Bring our Chloe here right now. Sarah's eyebrows shot up when Jean referred to Chloe as our Chloe. Our Chloe? Since when did you start calling her that? When she was born. You were so disappointed. She was a girl you wouldn't even look at her. When she had her shots. When we spent the night in the ER. You never called once. Has she suddenly become our child? At Sarah's pointed remark, Jean erupted. Are you talking back to me again? She's my granddaughter. Of course she's our child. You're so resentful. You should learn to be more forgiving. Are you acting all high and mighty just because you got a house? I'm not talking back. I'm just stating the facts. I'm going to live comfortably in my own house with Chloe. So please, stop telling me to come back. I'm hanging up now. Sarah hung up without a second thought. But that was just the beginning of a hellish phone barrage. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. And again. The calls didn't stop. By 11 a.m., she had over 30 missed calls. Sarah finally switched her phone to silent. Around noon, her husband, Mark, called. He sounded troubled as he tried to persuade her. Honey, Mom has been going crazy all morning. She's furious that you're not answering her calls. Can you please just answer the phone? Mark, do you have any idea how many times your mother has called me since this morning? I'm trying to take care of the baby. Why is she doing this? She's the one who wronged me. So why do I have to be the one to take her anger? But she's an elder. She's older. Can't you just try to understand a little? She's just saying this because she wants to see Chloe. Please, just stop by the house once. For my sake. Mark still didn't grasp the situation and was only siding with his mother. Sarah sighed deeply. No, I'm busy preparing to move. And if she has something to say, Tell her to apologize first. I'm hanging up. Around 3 p.m., a long text from Jean arrived. The content was even more absurd. Sarah, your parents must be better off than I thought, buying you a $1.5 million house just like that. You're a very lucky girl. You should know that you've brought fortune to our family and live with gratitude. Sarah read the text and burst out laughing. To call her parents hard-earned money, saved through a lifetime of diligent work, luck. Jean called again shortly after. This time, Sarah answered to record the conversation. Sarah, you got my text, right? Now listen carefully. You put Mark's name on half of that house's title right now. That's what makes a true married couple. You think you can just have it all to yourself? Jean, I'm busy feeding Chloe right now, and I'll handle my own house's title myself. You, is our Chloe doing well? Grandma can't sleep because I miss my little angel so much. Bring her here tomorrow. There it was again, the Our Chloe act. Sarah calmly activated the auto-record app on her smartphone. From now on, every conversation with Jean would be saved as a log file, legal evidence. Sarah replied coldly, Yes, Chloe is growing up healthy. I'm busy, so I'm hanging up now. Hey, Sarah, I'm not done talking to you. Sarah. Sarah hung up on Jean's screams. The calls didn't stop that night. At 11 p.m., 2 a.m., even 4 a.m., her phone vibrated, disturbing her sleep. Sarah saved every single record. The next morning, Sarah checked her call log and let out another humorless laugh. There were over 100 missed calls from her mother-in-law, Jean, and 50 from her husband, Mark. A barrage of 150 calls in a single day. Sarah opened her notebook and wrote with a sharper script than before. Evidence item, #9, abnormal phone barrage and stalking behavior, amounting to 150 calls in one day. Evidence item #0, sudden change in attitude, after news of apartment acquisition and coercion to share assets. Evidence item #1, intentional use of R to refer to granddaughter as a tool to access property. Sarah backed up all the recording files to the cloud, making a vow. Jean's voice, still shameless and greedy, echoed from the recording. This isn't about reconciliation. This is a disgusting attempt to seize my assets. Sarah looked out the window and smiled coldly. The more her in-laws panicked, the more evidence she gathered. Her heart was now unshakably firm. It was the fourth day since Sarah had started moving into the new apartment her parents had provided. Amidst the still unpacked boxes, the sharp ring of the doorbell echoed through the space. When Sarah checked the intercom, her brow furrowed. There stood her mother-in-law, Jean, her face a mask of fury. The moment Sarah opened the door, Jean pushed her way inside without a greeting. As if it were her own home, she strode through the living room, her eyes scanning the expensive marble floors and the expansive view of the city skyline. Jean's lips twitched as she spoke, her voice dripping with jealousy. This place is nice and big. Must have cost a fortune. So, this is the famous $1.5 million apartment? Sarah answered calmly. Yes, Jean. My parents bought this for me and Chloe with the money they saved their entire lives, so we wouldn't have to struggle. Jean plopped down on the sofa, assuming an arrogant posture, and got straight to the point. So, about the title, you need to add Mark's name to it and change it to a joint title right now. How does it make sense for a husband's name not to be on the deed of the house he lives in? Sarah paused, the teacup she was about to offer Jean hovering in midair. She looked her mother-in-law straight in the eye. Why should I do that? This is a property my parents provided solely for me. Why? Because you're married, that's why. And you have to think about our family's reputation. Later, if you have a son, a brother for Chloe, do you want him to live in a house where his own father's name isn't on the title? Jean brought up a hypothetical future son, asserting her demands as if they were a natural right. Sarah was so dumbfounded she let out a scornful laugh. The family's reputation? What reputation are you talking about? When you didn't even bother to show your face for a month and a half, whether your granddaughter was in the ER or not. You didn't contribute a single dime to this house. Instantly, Jean's face turned beet red. She jumped to her feet, pointing a finger at Sarah and screaming. You insolent brat. Just because your parents bought you a little house, you think you're so great? That's all just a debt, you know. When your parents get old and sick, you'll have to take care of them. You think that's free? Nothing in this world is free. Sarah clenched her fists. Her whole body trembled at her mother-in-law's venomous words, twisting her parents' pure love into a disgusting debt. A debt? It's a gift for my parents, for me. Have you ever bought Chloe a single can of formula, a single pack of diapers? You've done nothing. So what right do you have to demand a say in the title? Jean was speechless for a moment, then resorted to emotional blackmail, using her granddaughter as a pawn. What about our Chloe? If you want her to have anything to inherit later, her father's name needs to be on the legal documents. What are you planning to do on your own? I'll build Chloe's inheritance myself. I don't need your help, so don't you worry. At Sarah's firm stance, Jean finally pulled out her phone and screamed at her son, Mark. Mark, get over here right now. Your wife has gone completely crazy. Get here now and get your wife under control. After hanging up, Jean glared at Sarah as if she wanted to devour her, threatening her to be prepared. She seemed determined to get a signed agreement for the title transfer that very day. But Sarah was no longer shaken. She calmly opened the front door wide and gestured for Jean to leave. Please leave now. This is my house, so I make the decisions. You have zero right to interfere here. Jean stared at Sarah with a look of disbelief, then gritted her teeth and walked out. Until the door closed, she spat out curses, vowing she would not let this go. Left in the silence after the door slammed shut, Sarah sank onto the sofa, trying to catch her breath. But her eyes were as cold as ice. She took out her notebook and began to meticulously record the day's events. Evidence. Item #2. Mother-in-law's direct demand and coercion for real estate title transfer. Evidence item #3. Psychological pressure by framing parents' gift as daughter-in-law's debt. Evidence item #4. Shameless attempt at property extortion under the guise of granddaughter's inheritance rights. Sarah checked the recorder that had been running in her pocket. Jean's hate-filled voice and greedy demands were captured with crystal clarity. So your goal wasn't family harmony, but a scheme to swallow this household. Sarah whispered coldly, backing up the recording to the cloud. She looked out at the glittering city lights and made a decision. The house they coveted so much would become the very shackles that led to their downfall. That night, in the middle of the living room that her mother-in-law had stormed through like a hurricane, Sarah calmed her trembling heart and made a firm decision. She would no longer try to persuade with words or seek understanding by explaining her pain. She had learned the hard way that making excuses only armed the abusers. First, she opened her phone and found her mother-in-law's number. Without hesitation, she pressed the block button. The moment the block notification appeared on the screen, she felt a heavy weight lift from her chest. Next, she sent a short but powerful message to her husband, Mark. You need to make a choice, right now. It's either me and Chloe or your mother. There's no middle ground. Our future depends on which side you choose. After sending the text, Sarah put her phone down, far away from her, stroking the chubby cheek of Chloe, who was sleeping peacefully beside her. Sarah whispered, Chloe, Mommy is not going to put up with it anymore. I will never go back to that hell. The only thing I will protect is you. Less than 30 minutes later, Mark called. Sarah answered calmly, and Mark's frantic voice burst through the speaker. Honey, what is this all of a sudden? Me or Mom? How can you say something so extreme to your husband? What's gotten into you? You think this is sudden? Do you really think this just happened out of the blue? Have you already forgotten the hellish 2 months since Chloe was born and how you and your mother treated us? Sarah's voice was low, but the chilling anger in it made Mark hesitate. Soon, however, he started making cowardly excuses. Okay, I admit Mom was a bit harsh, but she's old. She's from a different generation. Her thinking is a bit outdated, so she made a mistake. She didn't mean to hurt the baby. Can't you, as a daughter-in-law, be a little more understanding? It's not that her thinking is outdated. It's that she never treated us like human beings from the start. She saw me and Chloe not as family, but as a burden. That's a complete misunderstanding, Sarah. Mom might seem tough on the outside, but she really wanted to see her granddaughter. I saw it with my own eyes. At Mark's blatant lie, Sarah let out a cold, bitter laugh. She wanted to see her? If she really wanted to see her, why didn't she call once in 2 months? Why did she ignore the pictures of Chloe I sent her? But the moment she heard about a $1.5 million apartment, she started calling 100 times a day. Do you really think that's the behavior of someone who misses her granddaughter? That's because she felt bad and was trying to make up for it. You weren't answering her calls, so she got frustrated. Make your choice, Mark. If you're going to keep making excuses for your mother, then fine. I don't care anymore. But Chloe and I have no intention of living entangled with you people ever again. The moment you choose your mother, we are over. Sarah, please, just give me some time. I'll talk to Mom and get her to apologize. We can't do this. For Chloe's sake. Mark's voice trembled, but Sarah cut him off coldly. I've already given you plenty of time. 2 months. Think about what you did during that time. The decision is yours now. Sarah hung up on Mark's pleas. Ignoring the continuous ringing of her phone, she enveloped herself in silence. The next day, her mother-in-law's relentless attacks began again. Even though Sarah had blocked her main number, Jean used other people's phones and even payphones to bombard her with texts. Sarah, why aren't you answering? What kind of daughter-in-law blocks her mother-in-law's number? What did I do so wrong to deserve this? Is it okay to trample on a grandmother's heart who just wants to see her granddaughter? Is this how your parents raised you? You're ignoring your elders just because you got a house? Sarah read each disgusting text but didn't reply to a single one. Instead, she quietly took screenshots and saved them in her evidence folder. That afternoon, a message from Mark arrived. Honey, we have a big problem. Mom is going around telling all our relatives bad things about you. She's saying that you got a house, and now you've gone crazy, cut off your mother-in-law, and won't let her see her granddaughter. The whole family is in an uproar. Sarah looked at her phone screen and smirked. It was the scenario she had expected. When cornered, her mother-in-law's classic move was to play the victim and incite those around her. So, are the relatives saying bad things about me? At Sarah's indifferent response, Mark became even more flustered. You have no idea. My aunts and uncles are calling me, saying how disrespectful you are. Mom is on the verge of collapsing. Are you really going to be like this? Let them do what they want. I'm not afraid of their opinions anymore. And I have something to show you. Instead of a reply, Sarah sent a file. It was a compilation of over 200 call records and text message screenshots from the past 2 days from all the different numbers Jean had used. Following that, she sent the recording of Jean screaming in her living room, demanding the title transfer. Does this sound like the voice of a grandmother crying because she misses her granddaughter? Or does it sound like the voice of a predator, blinded by a $1.5 million apartment, threatening her daughter-in-law? Mark was silent for a long time. He must have been listening to his own mother's monstrous screams. At a loss for words, Sarah sent one final, decisive text. I'll give you exactly 1 week. Decide whether you're going to choose me and Chloe and come to this house, or live as a dutiful son under your mother's thumb for the rest of your life. If you choose your mother, I will send you the divorce papers immediately. This is my final warning. Sarah turned off her phone completely and stared at the dark sky outside. Her face was cold, devoid of any emotion or lingering attachment. She had finally realized that silence could be the most powerful weapon. The more she talked, the more they found fault. The more she explained, the more they twisted the truth. Sarah opened her notebook and calmly recorded the day's events. Evidence. Item Haishan 5. Over 200 spam-like contacts from third-party numbers after being blocked. Evidence item. Hashon 6. On-site recording of title transfer demand and threats. Evidence. Item Hashon 7. Evidence of defamation by spreading false information to relatives. Closing the notebook, a faint smile appeared on Sarah's lips. The fight was no longer an emotional battle. It was a legal war, based on meticulous records and evidence. All Sarah had to do now was wait for the end. The 1-week deadline Sarah had given had passed. During that week, a small part of her might have held onto a sliver of hope. But in the end, Mark never showed up. There was no apology, no news of having persuaded his mother, no sign of wanting to see his child. There was only the cowardly silence of someone waiting for a storm to pass. Sarah packed her bag with a calm demeanor, as if this was the outcome she had expected all along. That afternoon, she visited the lawyer's office she had pre-booked. The sunlight streaming through the window was bright, but Sarah's gaze was colder and sharper. Placing a thick bundle of documents and a USB drive on the desk, she said, I want to file for divorce. I want it done through the fastest possible process, with no room for negotiation. The lawyer, noting Sarah's firm resolve, glanced at the documents and asked, what about custody of the child? This is usually where negotiations take the longest. There's no need for negotiation. I will have full custody. All the records of their neglect, emotional abuse, and attempts to access my assets are right here. Sarah pushed the USB drive towards the lawyer. It contained a detailed chronicle of the hellish 2 months, the recordings of her mother-in-law's verbal abuse, the log of over 100 calls a day, and the recording of her call with Mark when he chose a work dinner over his sick child. The lawyer reviewed the files one by one and nodded. This is sufficient. More than sufficient. With this much evidence, you are guaranteed to win not only full custody, but also a significant amount in alimony and child support. I don't need child support. I don't want to be tied to the man who was Chloe's father just to receive his dirty money. My only goal is to completely and permanently remove these people from my and Chloe's lives. There was not a shred of hesitation in Sarah's voice. 2 days later, the divorce papers were served to Mark at his office. A shocked Mark called her immediately. Honey, Sarah, what is all this? You really filed for divorce? Have you lost your mind? The one who's lost their mind is you and your mother. When I gave you a week, what did you do? You hid behind your mother's skirt and stayed silent. That's what you did. I just needed time to sort things out. You can't just end a marriage like this, sending papers out of the blue. What about our Chloe? Are you going to raise her without a father? At Mark's shameless outburst, Sarah retorted coldly, A father? Can you name a single instance since the day Chloe was born that you acted like a father? The man who was drinking with his colleagues while his daughter was sick. The man who stood by while she was neglected. Now wants to claim he's a father? Chloe is better off without a father like you. No, she's blessed to be without you. Sarah hung up on Mark's screams. That night, Jean called from another number, her voice filled with venom. Thinking it would be the last time, Sarah answered. Sarah, you are one stubborn woman. You're throwing away your husband and filing for divorce just because you got a house. Aren't you afraid of divine punishment? The one who should be afraid of divine punishment is you. The one who kicked out her daughter-in-law, cut off financial support, and didn't care if her granddaughter lived or died, only to come crawling and demanding the title to an apartment. Who was that? When did I do that? When did I ever kick you out? You went to your parents' house because you wanted to. Jean started to deny everything, pretending to have forgotten the venomous words she had spewed. But Sarah was prepared. Jean, do you take me for a fool? I have everything recorded, you demanding the title, treating me like a debtor, and all the insults you hurled at me. That ugly voice of yours will be revealed to the world in court. Can you handle that? Sarah could hear Jean's breathing getting ragged over the phone. She delivered the final blow. And don't even think about seeing Chloe for the rest of your life. I'm filing for a restraining order as well. To you, she wasn't a granddaughter. She was just an admission ticket to a $1.5 million apartment. Now, that ticket has been permanently revoked. You insolent. How dare you? Jean screamed, but Sarah didn't even flinch as she hung up the phone, and she blocked that number for good. In the following days, Jean went around the neighborhood, bad-mouthing Sarah. She played the victim, claiming her daughter-in-law had been blinded by a house from her parents and had abandoned her son. But the world didn't turn out the way Jean had hoped. Sarah's mother, Mary, had already told all their acquaintances the truth. You won't believe it. That mother-in-law didn't even buy a single pack of diapers for her granddaughter for 2 months and kept abusing her daughter-in-law. But the moment she heard about the $1.5 million apartment, she started calling hundreds of times a day, demanding the title. How could anyone live with someone like that? The neighborhood gossip now turned towards Jean. She brought it on herself, people said. That poor daughter-in-law must have had a good reason to file for divorce. Jean took out her frustration on her son, Mark, at home, but even Mark had no grounds to defend his mother in the face of the recorded evidence. In the end, it was they who were isolated. A month later, the divorce was finalized with a complete victory for Sarah. Sarah started a new life with Chloe in their $1.5 million apartment. In the living room, filled with the morning sun, Sarah fed Chloe her bottle and opened the window wide. Chloe, do you feel this fresh air? This is our perfect fortress now. No one can kick us out, and no one can treat us badly. Chloe gurgled and grabbed Sarah's finger tightly. Occasionally, Mark would send begging texts, saying he missed Chloe and asking if they could start over. But Sarah deleted them without a second glance. They were trash, not even worthy of a response. Jean, in the end, lost the house she so desperately wanted, her son's stable family, and her only granddaughter, and was reduced to a bitter old woman screaming in her house. It was the price she paid for being blinded by greed and pushing her most precious people to the brink. Sarah leaned back on the sofa, watched the sleeping Chloe, and opened her notebook. On the final page, she wrote, as if placing a final period, Evidence. Item. Hashonate. Divorce suit 1. With complete legal separation. Evidence. Item Hashonanine. Social isolation of perpetrators and restraining order complete. Sarah closed the notebook and smiled brightly. It was a smile free of sadness, a dazzling smile that only a victor could wear. The fight was over, and Sarah had perfectly cut out everything unnecessary from her life. Now, all that lay before her was a brilliant future to be painted with Chloe.